Okay, so on page 276 of your textbook, it talks about this Connect to Your World. Was talking about science fiction movies where they're bringing back dinosaurs back to life or whatever, and usually something goes drastically wrong because you're messing with normal cell cycles with regulation of cells. So if this cell growth goes out of control, bad things happen. In us, usually when cell regulation goes out of control, we would get something called cancers or tumors, because these are things that affect the cell cycle. Okay, we get millions of cell divisions all the time. They have to be correct because when we're dividing a cell, when we're replicating a cell, we want it to be just like the one it came from. If it's not, it's going to be a problem. We have these cell divisions for growth, development, repair, and all of this must be regulated to have it go like it's supposed to, so we're getting identical copies of the cells that are replicating and not close or not good at all copies of that cell. We want it to work well. So there are both internal and external factors that regulate cell division. External factors come from outside of the cell. They would be factors that regulate the cell cycle from outside the cell. This could be messages from nearby cells or cells or signals from distant parts of the body, like a hormone or something that's released in the bloodstream that's picked up, released from one area of the body and picked up another area of the body to have a response. Internal factors that regulate cell cycle come from inside the cell. This could be several different types of molecules that are in the cytoplasm, and they work together to control cell division. Again, controlled cell division, meaning that the cell cycle is being regulated, it's being controlled, it's cycling the way it is supposed to, and so the cells that would be made would be correctly made. External factors would include physical and chemical signals. This could be cell-to-cell contact, literally just the cells touching together because they're close together would probably tell that cell to slow down cell division because it's not going to have enough space. Okay, or growth factors, external growth factors, which could be a number of different things, including hormones like human growth hormone, or other things like platelets that are sticky fragments of bone marrow cells that help in the clotting process of your inflammatory response when you get it cut or scraped to have your body form a scab. Okay, so external factors are coming from outside of the cell, cell-to-cell contact, growth factors, hormones, etc. Cell-to-cell contact would be one of the external factors. Okay, so cells in a petri dish are growing, and they're pretty much covering the entire bottom of this petri dish right here. Right? If you take part of it out, there's not getting any contact from here to here. So this would encourage these cells to grow and fill in that missing part. They would keep dividing until they ran out of space because of the cell-to-cell contact, and it would go. Once they start touching, there are external factors that may trigger the cytoskeleton to block signals that would say to grow. Other external factors like growth factors would be proteins that stimulate cell division. Chemical signals released by cells that tell other cells to grow. For example, you get an injury to this area. Okay, chemical signals are released to the cells in this area to say grow, to repair this damaged part of this blood vessel. The signal is going to activate the genes to trigger cell growth, and new cells would grow in this area to fix that damaged area of the blood vessel. Platelets form clots that stop bleeding when you get it cut, scrape, whatever. Platelets also store growth factors that help with the repair of those cells, those skin cells in that area, to fill in the damaged area once the bleeding stops and replace those cells so you don't have bleeding. Other external factors, like hormones, would stimulate growth of certain cells. Hormones are going to affect bone and muscle growth to allow you to get larger, more mass, more muscle growth, as those hormones stimulate the growth of the muscle cells and bone cells. You would get bigger. Also, with your red blood cells, say you move from the coast, like very little elevation, to the mountains, much higher elevation, there would be less oxygen in the air at higher altitudes because the air pressure is lower and there's just less oxygen per liter. So your body would use erythropoietin to stimulate the production of cells that will become red blood cells. So more red blood cells, you have a higher oxygen carrying capacity of your red blood cells, and then after a little bit of time, you would acclimate to the higher altitude and you wouldn't be so short of breath. Like when you first go skiing or snowboarding for the weekend, you get up to altitude, you have a hard time breathing. It's because you're not used to that elevation. These external factors would adjust for that and allow you to take in oxygen more efficiently because you'd have more red blood cells to do so. Okay, internal factors a lot of times are actually controlled by external factors binding to a receptor on the cell membrane or on the cell membrane that can trigger a response inside the cell. So the external factor triggers the internal factor. These internal factors are going to activate enzymes inside the cell that control the cell cycle. Two of the most important of these are kinases and cyclin. A kinase is an enzyme that, when activated, transfers a phosphate group from one molecule to a specific target molecule, increasing the energy of the target molecule or changing its shape. And these are almost always present in the cell. Kinases help control the cell cycle, are activated by this other type called cyclins. Okay, cyclins are proteins that are rapidly made and destroyed at certain points in the cell cycle. These two factors help a cell advance to different stages of the cell cycle when binding to each other. So they work together to regulate the cell cycle. Without regulation of the cell cycle, if it went unchecked, it wouldn't allow the proper time for each phase to go through, and cell division, cell replication would not be as accurate. Okay, apoptosis is programmed cell death. There are genes that get activated that produce self-destructive enzymes. For example, in a tadpole, right, when it's in the embryonic stage of development, it's called a tadpole because it's swimming underwater. When it starts developing into the adult frog, okay, it's going to lose the tail because it doesn't need it, so there'll be enzymes that will destroy this, and it'll change into the adult version of the frog, which does not have a tail. Same thing during human development with our hands. When our hands first start developing, they look more like a mitten than a glove. So there are enzymes in the tissue between fingers that are going to cut away this tissue and actually cut away the tissue that'd be between your fingers, and so you would look like that. Okay? Otherwise, we would have webs between our fingers, which we don't.